Today's topic, do we have enough fuel to get to our destination? So welcome to this video featuring the FlightFactor 777 version 2. We're in the 200 ER in the Rolls Royce variant. As you can see, predicted fuel on arrival, currently 4 tonnes. Now, I do see a lot of forum posts, and what I would implore is that you move away from getting to within your destination and asking if you've got enough fuel to get there. But there are techniques that you can do in order to answer that question way before you get to top of descent, and that's how you should be thinking about that. You don't want to be in a position where you're adding that stress into your final workload. You know, it's busy enough when you're managing that descent and you're managing the arrival. So let's show you our findings, because I've been taking some notes as we've been going along. So today's flight originated in Gruyere, going over to Gold Coast. The reason why I've just picked that city pair is because when I was looking at the weather over Australia, I was just looking for a jet stream, so I found this pretty strong jet stream going on over the 19th of September. So we should be getting winds in excess of 100 knots, probably around 120 knots, as you can see there by the wind barbs. I actually flew out much earlier in terms of the Zulu time, so winds along here were sort of as expected, and they got a bit weaker by the time we got to these last few waypoints, but this is what I'm going to come on to next. So we'll just keep an eye on the descent. Currently 104 miles to go. What we're going to use to help us, yep, you might think the VNAV profile. I'm just using VNAV path at the moment, but more importantly, we need to be cross-checking this. We spoke about the 3-to-1 rule before, so let's just keep an eye on this as well. So all I'm showing you here, so let's have a look. We've got 2 pieces of data for each waypoint. We've got the planned fuel on board, the planned fuel burn, and then the actuals there in the right hand column. So how did we fare? So the first waypoint, you can see the fuel on board, bang on. Burn, just burnt a bit more than the plan called for. I'll let you review those, but as we come down to Upgan, we can see again the fuel on board. We've got 400 kilos more than we'd planned for, so that's a good situation to be in, right? And then the fuel burn, well, about 100 kilos less than we should have done so. So that FMC prediction is in line with this. Let's have a look again. The final waypoint was Panpu, and got 400 kilos more on board, with a burn being just slightly lower than what we'd planned for. So with figures that align as closely as that, I've got no concerns in saying that we'll get to our destination. I'm just going to put on a bit more data on here just to show you then the winds first off that we'd spoke about were again in line with the forecast. So this is the beauty of X-Plane's historic weather. I'm flying this over the 25th of September. I've just set the same time and date back to the 19th. So you can see we've got the winds as they were on that chart. Coming down though, you will see the winds start to weaken in terms of what we experience versus the plan, about 20 knots less. But remember how I said that I flew this about maybe 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours before the time that I captured that jet stream. So that's probably there to be expected. But even with those weaker winds, you can see that that's not impacted our fuel burn at all, or our altitude. Or when I say it's not impacted it at all, that's wrong. It's not impacted it for it to be significant. The other thing that's not significant, you know, I see a lot of you talk about step climbs. Brilliant. Let's use the new auto step climb feature that this aircraft has. But for the purposes of this test, because I just wanted to capture that jet stream exactly how it was, well, I've just decided to fly at flight level 350. So have I been disadvantaged by that? No, because I planned for one static flight level. I planned for flight level 350. I told simbrief that's the flight level I was going to fly at. So the other thing I'd ask you to be more familiar with as well and aware of is how much fuel you're burning in the descent. That is of course important to know. Now, looks like we're burning at the moment probably just a little bit less than a 737-800 burn during the cruise there, just slightly less than 1 tonne per hour per engine. So what's that, 2 tonnes per hour, 20 minutes, so yeah, we need to be thinking about maybe 1.2 tonnes for the descent. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on this. I'll show you the final figures at the end, and I'll just show you my dodgy approach and landing into Gold Coast. Okay, so just have a look at the simbrief figures then that are on the screen now. So we don't want to go below, ideally, 5 tonnes of fuel. So that is the sum of the alternate plus the final reserves plus the ETOPS fuel. Okay, so on the approach I'm just needing to go a bit wider, just currently high of the VNAV profile. I've decided that as this is a particularly massive jet, that just intervention by speed brake won't be enough, so we'll just hang a bit of a right and then rejoin our track shortly. Okay, so just going to turn back onto course there. Need to go back to waypoint Fickle. So if we just now, the way we can get VNAV to recompute that is just by going direct in there by just double line selecting the waypoint in question there. And you see now then that we're 2,800 feet below profile. So that's going to add a bit more onto our fuel burn. But just pop in on the screen now for you so that you can see the total or the summary of the forecast. So looking at burning 18.2 tonnes, we can go up to an extra 1.5 tonnes, and then we don't want to burn into the alternate of 2 tonnes nor the final reserves, and then the ETOPS fuel, again we've got that in credit, or we should have that in credit, because we didn't need to do any ETOPS diversions or deal with any unexpected situation that would require to use our ETOPS fuel. So 5 tonnes is what we should land with. Now 7 is currently showing, so we've got 7 on board. FMC prediction has just gone up a little bit. So I did say that will cost us a bit of fuel, so we're now burning 6 tonnes an hour, so within 10 minutes I can wave bye bye to another tonne. So the runway's in sight, and not far to go now. Let's do the gear down.
Now, flaps set.
It will be a flap 25 landing, so we've got the lights on as well. Flap 10 then. Beg your pardon, flap 15. So I'm just going to go in speed intervene there, as we're in VNAV. So we're still in VNAV path. We can set the missed approach altitude now as well. We are way below the altitude that we should have done that. So we'll just wind that up to nearest offer, 3,000. Flap 20. And what we do need to be mindful of, of course, is when we do flap 25, is that the speed is appropriate for that setting. Otherwise, it will just simply, the load elevation, I beg your pardon, what's it called? LAF? Whatever it does. It will just temporarily halt deployment of the flaps. So, flap 25. Just see it there taking its time, and that's just waiting for that speed just to come down. There we go.
Set. Checklist complete.
So landing checklist is complete. So probably a good time to disconnect the auto throttle and just get a hold there of the current power settings. What about it's disconnected? So wind 350 there, just a little bit from the right hand side. It's just moving around though, isn't it?
1,000.
Approaching 3, 2.
That power's a bit too low really. So remind me at the end, I need to show you the exact simbrief options that I used, didn't I? But effectively it's just using an extra 5% as an additive. I've got a bit of a symmetry there, haven't I, on the power.
$400. $300. $200.
So we don't have any ILS guidance here, do we? It's an on-nav approach that we're doing. So just looking at the
100.
outside view now.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
A bit firmer than I was hoping for, but anyway, we're down.
One 1,000 feet remaining. Three 1,000 feet remaining.
I would sooner land in the touchdown zone than go for butter and end up on toast. Hopefully on this video you have understood a lot more about the monitoring of the flight plan, and particularly we're looking at that fuel figure now that's on board, 6.2 tons, and you can see how we've arrived at that figure. You've seen the monitoring behind it, you've seen that that's the value that I was going for. That's more than we'd planned for. In relation to that planning, we've not actually spoke about a case where the performance is a lot worse than what we expect, and what we do in that case, we'll save that for another time. But just hope that you can see how it's important to be monitoring your flight, regular points along that. It doesn't have to be each waypoint. There's a little tip to share with you, is in the top right hand corner of the navigation display where it gives your estimated time to reach that waypoint. You could always think about setting a timer on your phone, whatever, and just going back into the sim at that point. Now I know sometimes some of you sleep through a long haul flight, but I would really question the benefits you're getting. Say if you're doing a 10-hour flight, you're taking off in the first half an hour and you're arriving back just for the final half hour to land it. If things have gone off track during that time, there's no time to save it, folks. And like I said at the beginning, the time to save it is when it doesn't become a burning issue, when it doesn't become like a low fuel emergency situation. And I'll just show you the simbrief profile that I've used, because this is more important now to want you to go away and try this out. So zero fuel weight was 170 tons, that's what I tested it with. Cost index was 43, and then I just chose that profile, the Microsoft one, with an additive of 5%. So that, as you can see, that's worked incredibly well. So before you start, say, thinking about is the plane using too much fuel, have the data at each waypoint to back that up, particularly the one prior to top of descent. That's a critical reading. Have we got enough to go from top of descent? Think about landing at our intended airfield, or are we going to be looking at burning into our alternate? Say if conditions down at our intended airfield are deteriorating, we might have to consider going to the alternate. So we don't want to be burning into that alternate figure either. And in terms of the final reserves, that'd be a bit of a squeaky bum moment as well. Right, so any comments or questions, do let me know. There will be more of these videos. I want to test this same profile on a longer flight as well, but I'll stick with the same zero fuel weight for now until I get a bit more data. Thank you for viewing, do like, subscribe, and I'll see you soon on a future video. Take care and bye bye.